the kind you wear a tie. Button up from 9 to 5. I tried that life but said goodbye. I'm not always polite, but I get the job done. Who says the work can never be fun? I'm simply unprofessional. Simply unprofessional.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Simply Unprofessional. I'm your host tonight, Devin. Joining me, we have, I guess, the co-host for this evening, Sir Webby. That sounds about right. And we got Rob.
Hey, everybody, it's Rob.
And back for another week, we got Apple.
Hello.
And tonight, we're going to talk about something. I'm not
sure.
really sure what. I got a couple of things.
Weapons.
Weapons. We're talking about weapons. We're talking about weapons, and by weapons he means the fighter that walks in and he has the tattoos on both his arms that just say "these hands." So we're talking about fighters' arms and armaments. No, I'm kidding. We are talking about weapons, though.
This all started because of a sickle.
A sickle or a scythe or a spear, depending on who you're talking to. That could be reflavored as a halberd. It's all dumb. It's all dumb. Because, like, for instance, how would you flavor you could flavor a katana as a longsword, but then the longsword and the katana are theoretically two different things. So it all boils down to flavoring of weapons and everything like that. So,
and to clarify, this is talking about D&D. Or I guess any tabletop game that doesn't have an expansive library of weapons.
And I'm going to say this. I'm going to get off on a tangent at some point about the weapon damage type like categories, because I hate it. I think it's antiquated and stupid. Because there's certain things make sense, like bludgeoning, and that makes sense. And I think they need to make it more just. Because a lot of the weapons that are listed as piercing, or a lot of the weapons that are listed as slashing, can pierce and can slash. It's kind of stupid. So,
yeah, that's fair.
Their basis is mainly what its most common use would do.
Right.
Like back in second edition, some weapons would do two different types of damage based off of how you used it.
How you used them. I know, but it mainly boils down to the damage reduction and the damage resistances for specific things. And the old one, all skeletons have resistance to, I think, was it piercing damage?
Yeah, but they're vulnerable
to bludgeoning damage. Yeah, it's but you also get a great axe, and it's well, okay, if you're not taking pristine, that orc that has that great axe, or the minotaur with that great axe, if he's not taking pristine care of that great axe probably does just as much bludgeoning damage when it hits you as it does slashing damage. I mean, so it's kind of a stupid thing in that way. For instance, the short sword, it does piercing damage.
Because historically, it's meant as a stab type weapon, a thrust.
Yeah, historically, it's based off of the.
Listen. I'm not going to get John up in arms. I'm not talking historically in actual history.
I'm saying, I'm saying historically. I'm saying it's based off the spatha, which was used with the shield, which was used to more stab. But that was also then, historically speaking, the spear, which I'm going to go on a limb and say the spear gets the shaft in D&D, doesn't get the respect. Not many people use a spear, because it's you're better off using a quarterstaff, because there's more feats that support the quarterstaff. And we're already getting off onto a tangent, but these are all things that this is exactly why when I made my halfling for your game, Webby, I specifically gave him a spear because I was like, I'm going to give this guy a spear because we need more spears. But anyway, this is where we are.
Yeah. I have a weapon that I don't feel like that people. So I did martial arts for 7 years, and one of the weapons I trained with as I got higher up in the ranks was a bow staff. I'm very partial to bow staffs, and some people might say, "Well, what's the difference between a bow staff and a quarterstaff?" And I will admit they are similar, but like it's just as similar as two different types of swords are. Yeah, they both have a blade and you're meant to swing them, but like they were designed for different things. Like a bow staff is historically supposed to have like a central cloth bit to it, like that you would hold. Like you're literally supposed to grip it and hit it kind of left to right. Like I know different bow staff forms and stuff. Whereas like a quarter staff, I feel is not designed like that. If that makes sense. Like there's not like a central grip to it. Like you're not the way you handle a quarter staff is different. And I just really like bow staffs, and I feel like they should be statted out for 5e also.
That's my issue.
Well,
go ahead.
Let me ask you this: are they similar enough where they would both become? Would they both be considered versatile weapons, and would they both do bludgeoning damage, and would they both do roughly the same damage type? Well, like a damage amount, I should say.
Yes, probably, but don't two different swords also not like the difference between like a great sword and like a normal sword, but like the difference between like a fucking like a fancy curved sword versus like a not curved sword.
Right, like a long sword or a scimitar.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I mean, that's where flavor comes in, though. I mean,
that's fair.
You could create a character and say, "Oh, I'd like to use a bow staff." It's just essentially just a reskinned quarter staff. At least I would think. I don't honestly know the difference between the two. If
It
you're saying
would
that,
effectively be.
There is a difference.
There is a difference, but I mean, for D&D damage purposes and like use purposes, the bow staff doesn't add like a blade or anything to it. Now, if you were going to get into like
so let me ask you this:
staff, for instance, that would be a little bit of a difference because then you have to stat that out brand new because then you're adding in elements of also like nunchucks top of a staff. So but like for damage purposes and just everything else, the bow staff to the quarter staff is mainly flavor.
So let me ask you this: would Donatello from the Ninja Turtles is what he uses a quarterstaff or a bow staff?
Probably a bow staff.
Yeah,
I'm just
it
trying
was classified as a bow staff in the comic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to get like a visual. Like I don't like. I legit just don't know the difference. But yeah, I mean, and then even like that, if like Apple, I DM for you.
Just a little bit.
If you came to me and was like, "Hey, I'd like to make this character, and I want them to have, a bow staff and a, martial arts background and this, that, and the other thing," I mean, if you had if you were very passionate about like the bow staff, I would probably sit down and ask you some questions, or at least research it a little bit when I have time, and like I might even add like a special maneuver that you could do with that you would generally maybe wouldn't do with a quarterstaff, or like if there's a specialized purpose behind the bow staff, or things like that. I definitely think that they should broaden their I'm surprised. Okay, I'll phrase it this way: I'm surprised that Wizards of the Coast, unless they have, and I'm just not understand, and I haven't seen it. With all of the expansions, all of the additional content that they've released, I'm really surprised they have not released just a combat book with other types of armor, weapons, maneuvers for, grapplers and things like that. Certain types of moves. Like if you wanted to make a wrestler who just sat there and your main goal was to grapple your opponent and then do damaging moves mid grapple, like a suplex, there should be a system for that, but there isn't. And I'm very surprised that Wizards of the Coast has not released something similar to that.
I have something for that. And I think at this point it's deliberate because I always I'm like I hate to be like the 3.5 guy, but I bring up 3.5 because I remember and I pull up the list to make sure I was right. There were a lot of weapons in 3.5, and I'm not gonna lie, a lot of them were redundant. In like not each edition, but like different books added more weapons. But just in the basic book, you're gonna run through the list of weapons. First off, they had light melee weapons, one-handed melee weapons, two-handed melee weapons, range weapons, and that's the categories. And then you obviously hit your simple, your martial, and your exotics. Exotics usually required a feat to use them, like with proficiency. But you had gauntlet. You had gauntlets. Well, those were under the unarmed strikes category, but you could wear gauntlets and still be considered unarmed, which was a way to get allow people to use unarmed strikes, but like enchant their gauntlets with properties that would allow them to do certain things. So you had gauntlets. You had a dagger. You had a punching dagger. Only difference between the dagger and the punching dagger: the dagger had a larger crit range. It critted on a 19 or 20, but only did ×2 damage. The punching dagger did ×3 damage. You could throw the dagger at 10 feet for 10 feet, and the dagger also did piercing or slashing, where the punching dagger you could not throw and only did piercing damage. You then had the spiked gauntlet, which did one die more, like one die a step higher. So the gauntlet did a 1d3, the spike did 1d4. You had the light mace and you had the sickle. Here we are. Then you had, for one-handed, you had the club, you had the mace heavy, you had a morning star and the short spear, which again, like all kind of hit or miss. You also could throw the club, which was really interesting. Club had a range of 10 feet. For two-handed melee weapons, you had the long spear and you had the quarterstaff. And then you had the spear. Then you had the range weapons. You had, this is under simple, you had crossbow, light, crossbow, heavy. You had dart, javelin, and sling. Then you moved to martial. You had the throwing axe, the light hammer, the hand axe, the kukri, R.I.P. kukri, my favorite dagger of all time. The light pick, the sap, the light shield, spiked armor, light spiked shield, and short sword. In one-handed melee weapon, you had the battle axe, the flail, the long sword, the heavy pick, the rapier, the scimitar, the heavy shield, the heavy spike shield, the triton, and the warhammer. Then in two-handed melee weapons, you had the falchion, the glaive, the great axe, the great club, the heavy flail, the great sword, the guisarme, the halberd, the lance, the rancer, and the scythe. Again, here we are. And then for range weapons, you had the longbow composite, the short bow, and the short bow composite. And then you got two exotic weapons. You had the kama, the nunchakus, the sais, the singams, bastard swords under the one-handed weapons, dwarven war axes. You had the whips under the two-handed melee weapons. You had the orc double axe, the spike chain, the dire flail, the gnome hooked hammer, the two-bladed sword, the dwarven urgosh, and then the range weapons. You had bolas, hand crossbow, repeating heavy crossbow, repeating light crossbow, and the net and shurikens. Also, R.I.P. spike chain, most cheesiest weapon of all time. But yeah. So, like, they gave you all of the weapons in 3.5. Like, the difference between a falchion and a greatsword were the falchion crit on an 18 to 20 and did ×2 damage. The greatsword crit on a 19 to 20 and did ×2 damage. The falchion did 2d4 damage and the greatsword did 2d6. So you basically would give up one step of damage dice for a bigger crit range. So if you were doing a two-handed crit fishing build, the falchion was your way to go.
Right.
But
Hope
that
everyone's
was
taking notes.
Yeah. So that's how that went down, right? That's how that all went down. But everything else fundamentally was the exact same. Oh, and the falchion cost 25 gold more. Yeah. So, like, I feel like they did that, and then in 4th edition, they were like, nah, we're getting away from that. In 4th edition, like, I feel like weapons didn't matter. Like, because you had your maneuvers and, like, your abilities, and I feel like your weapon really didn't matter unless you had a weapon that gave you, like, a maneuver or an ability. But like I feel like the actual weapon itself didn't matter. It was just like, well, I'm whatever this weapon is, I'm just gonna flavor it to something else, and there we go. I got what I wanted. Because your damage was usually determined by the bulk of your damage was determined by your at wills, your encounters, or your dailies. So or like your feats. So it didn't really matter. And in 5th edition, they were just like, all right, what are all these weapons that we do that like we can like shrink down into one category? Because like the falchion and the great sword, or the heavy spear and the light spear. Well, can we just like shrink these down into one category, kind of like find in the middle? Like for instance, I go to the quarterstaff, and some things got buffed. The quarterstaff used to do 1d6 for both. Like it was a versatile 1d6. It did for both one-handed or two-handed. It would do 1d6, but now it does the 1d8, and then the offhand does the 1d6, or in two hands it did 1d8, and then on one hand does 1d6. So they kind of changed it a little bit. So yeah, but I really do feel like with that you do lose a little bit of uniqueness in making a character. When you make your character, you're doing stuff. It's like, yeah, I can flavor this katana, but like, if I could flavor this longsword as a katana, but fundamentally it's no different, and it feels the exact same as this guy's longsword. Which is that maybe true in real life? I don't know. I'm not a sword expert, but I'm just saying, like, I know sitting at a table playing a game, if you have 3 guys all with longswords, you're kind of competing with each other, because it's like, as a DM, if you drop a longsword, like, or somebody drops a longsword, or somebody drops a scimitar, or somebody drops whatever it may be, right? They drop this weapon, and 3 people in the group have a weapon that fits that category, but it may be flavored to something else. You're more inclined to like cater to that object to one person specifically, because it's like, let's say like, okay, let's go with again, you have a 2 fighter, you have a fighter and a paladin. The paladin has flavored his longsword as a katana. This guy flavors that. Well, this bad guy who has a magical longsword that may be beneficial to the party, you're now like, well, technically both of these guys use it, but if I drop it and say it's a longsword, it's almost like I'm giving it to the other guy. If I drop it and say it's a katana, I'm giving it to this guy, and it's up for me to make that decision. Or you're just gonna drop it and leave it ambiguous. Oh, it's a sword, that kind of thing, and let the party kind of like to figure that out. And I just feel like it creates like a lot of sameness, and that is kind of the one thing I do have the biggest issue with like 5e is I feel like once you've run through the list of classes and you play stuff, you have to like get your uniqueness out of role play more so than like out of actually character building.
Right. Now let me ask all of you this, because I see that Anthony has joined us as well. Hello, Anthony.
Hello, Webby. Hello, everyone.
So I've actually DM'd for every single person in this call now. And this is the question that I have as a DM to you all as players. In the example that Devin was just talking about, say all of you just used swords, right? But you all flavored them differently because there wasn't that particular style of sword in the weapons list or this, that, or the other thing. Would you as players rather me, if you beat like a boss or whatever, specify, this was a katana, so that way if Devin uses the katanas, it would more likely go to Devin? Or as players, would you rather the DM just say, it's a longsword, or it's a sword, let you guys figure out who most needs that upgrade, and then allow you to just flavor it in the style of which your character is, based around? Unless there is specific mechanical differences, obviously, but as of right now, there isn't,
Right. I've been talking, so I'll answer last. So you guys, I'll go ahead.
I mean, I'll answer first. I realize this is a fantasy game, but changing the sword after you've got it seems kind of unrealistic. It's like, I don't need this sword. Suddenly it's a katana. So here you go. It's like,
I agree. I think it'd be cooler to be like, oh, this guy had a shadow katana or he had like a fucking scimitar. Like, I would rather it be flavored, but also like, at least me, like, unless my character has like a specific reason to have a cool, like, flavored sword already. Like, say I would like, and by that I mean like a reason for my character to be driven specifically to katanas, for example. Like, I wouldn't be opposed to like any different type of sword. Usually I think my brain says the original flavoring was probably more for just like what you thought was cool at the time and not necessarily what your character was like, I have to have scimitars.
Like, if I was using a longsword or something and then it's like, oh, you found Death's scythe, I'd be like, I'll still use it even though it's not a sword. Hell yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Walking around with Death's scythe.
What about you, Anthony? What would your vote or preference be?
I kind of like it when, like, because I think you mentioned the situation where, oh, if that's the long sword, so and so should get it because they use long swords. I kind of like it where you have to have that conversation. So, like, let's say I only do use short swords or whatever, and you find a short sword, but if everyone else can use it also, then I like that dynamic of, oh, maybe you guys have to kind of figure out who gets it.
Right. Okay. So, specified drops. More info is better.
Yeah.
I also think it helps with the theater of the mind aspect of it all. Sorry, go ahead, Devin.
That is true.
Oh, you're fine. It does help with the theater of the mind aspect of it all, and I do agree with like more. I do agree more in the line of like just like specific drops. I do. Now, having played in games and Webby and Rob specifically, I know have had similar experiences where you have DMs who will favor one or two or a group of individuals over certain people in the party, where it seems every drop is going to somebody like that. If you're in that kind of situation, the specificity of drops will suck. But also, I feel like too, like I think there's character reasons why you may flavor something as a katana. Like for instance, like if you were going back to like the Oriental Adventures, let's say you're playing a Dragonborn and your Dragonborn character comes from a clan that like a Dragonborn tribe or a clan that was primarily set in that type of environment. They're going to use more like your katanas and more of your
Right.
but
those,
and they do function fundamentally different. Like even like if you're taking the time to be like, yeah, like we're going to acknowledge that there is a difference here to where like the fluff matters. You know what I mean? We're like, if we're going to take the time to like say, well, if it was dropped as a longsword, it's going to be a longsword. Then you have to also acknowledge that like the fundamental use of those is a little bit different in the sense of, yeah, I'm flavoring this because it's not in the book, but like on the same hand, their fundamental use is different because like it doesn't, and me and Webby had this conversation before. At what point does fluff annoy somebody? Like I think the conversation I had with you before was, hey, like Webby, what if I fluffed a warlock or a spellcaster where they just cast their spells and they shot their spells out of out of a bow? We've had this conversation before. I said, and me and you were like, well, you're like, well, I feel like somebody would get annoyed by that. And I'm like, right. I'm like, but nothing fundamentally changed. Like I'm not changing the range of the spell. I'm not changing anything about the spell. It's just when my character casts a spell, I'm just gonna like flavor it as him drawing back the bow of a string, like a magical arrow appears, and then the spell effect happens. So if I'm casting a cure spell and somebody's 60 feet away, a holy white arrow that burns with a holy light strikes my ally in the back. He feels reinvigorated and he heals. Right? Fundamentally, same thing as a spell, but it gets down to a point of and your whole thing was this, like if you don't have an issue with it per se, but your issue would be with other players in the party who would be like, well, that's not fair to me. I got to buy arrows, but he's shooting arrows. And then my counter was, I'm not shooting arrows. I'm casting spells. And I'm limited by the spells I can cast.
See, I remember this conversation, and you know what had come out after that would have been very upset at that conversation? The Arcane Archer.
Well, we already determined the Arcane Archer is absolute fucking trash.
It's true.
It's absolutely
But-
trash. And like I'm just saying, like, and the arcane archer doesn't even fundamentally work like that because it actually makes arrows.
Right.
Like, yeah. So I'm just saying, like, yeah, and I'm like, I would even like, I even said, like, you know, it's one of those things where, like, yeah, I would even like take the proverbial L, so to speak, and flavor it to where I can't cast spells without my bow. Like, maybe I have a compulsion or whatever it may be, where, or my spells have a percentage chance of failing if I don't cast them through my bow. I would even go that far, right? But fundamentally, nothing really changes in how the game mechanics roll. It's just me flavoring it. But at what point does you flavoring something cross a line to the point where it's like, well, no, we're not allowing that because of X, Y, and Z. So my point is, circling back around, is if we're going to acknowledge the fact that, like Rob said, like the weapon, him just describing it as, oh, it's a sword that falls on the ground. You know, oh, he had a versatile sword. You know, a sword that, you know, could appear to be able to be used in one hand or both. And if the guy with the katana picks it up and it, you know, was then like rewritten into canon as, oh, it was a katana type blade or whatever it may be, right? At what point is like, and I get like that can like air quotes break immersion to a degree, but at what point does the flavoring of that cross over into being like too far?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, at what point does flavoring become too far? Which I guess could be a whole like conversation for a thing. If like fundamentally nothing is changing statistically wise, but I get how it could break immersion or mess up with somebody else.
Also, going back though to like Apple bringing up the bow staff and quarterstaff, like anybody who like, if you saw both of those on a list and they were identical, I mean, they would just choose one, not knowing that there even was a difference, because, you know, if mechanically there wasn't a difference,
right.
Which is why, you know, like I said, I might, you know, as a DM, I probably would take something like the bow staff, which is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Apple, because again, I don't know. Would the bow staff be technically like a more specialized quarterstaff?
So, from some of the research I've done, they are very similar, but they've been used in different. They tend to use different like techniques between the two of them, where like people tend to utilize more reach with a quarterstaff versus more of a two-handed method with like a bow staff, where you have both your hands at the center 9 times out of 10. Like, right. It's just like they are similar, but like.
So like with okay, so the bow staff would have your hands closer to the center. Would that allow for more like spinning type moves, that kind of thing, like twirling it, I guess, because when you twirl a quarterstaff, you have to twirl it from the middle, I'm guessing, as opposed to trying to utilize it for more of a reach purpose. Is that even a thing? I don't.
I'll just speak from my experience as someone who utilized a bow staff, and I wish it could be like this, and it kind of is, but I guess it just doesn't get fully talked out or flavored. You know, it's like one of those things where you're like, yeah, the cleric technically prays in the morning, but like no one ever talks like to get their magic spells, but no one ever talks about that. Like, in theory, you could be holding your bow staff with both of your hands, and you could use it to like block or parry a move, and then like you could also be holding it while you fucking stomp kick somebody. Like, you don't. I don't know, but yeah, it's just different forms of martial arts, which is what Devin is saying in the chat.
and a quarterstaff would be used in a different sense. So, like, I might give that bow staff a special tag where, you know, you can maybe add a small bit to your AC if you're, you know, flourishing it or whatever.
I think they are slightly like and this is again just like based on the very limited things that I've like looked up and researched into it, because I've primarily used a bow staff in real life, whereas I've only used a quarterstaff in fantasy world where you can't visibly see it. I think a quarterstaff is slightly bigger, but like not a lot, like slightly thicker and longer, but like, and then like, because my bow staff is like it's considered a toothpick bow staff. It's incredibly light, but it's made of metal, so it still hurts.
Yeah, see, a weapon like that, I would probably just add like a special tag onto, even if it was mechanically the same, the same reach or the same damage or, you know, whatever. I would add something to the bow staff to make it a little bit more unique. So that way that specified weapon stands out a little bit from a quarterstaff. The only issue I ever saw with doing something like that is then any monk or anybody who creates a character that can use a quarterstaff will opt to probably use the bow staff, because mechanically, especially if they're, you know, if they don't know the difference, they're gonna be like, oh well, these are all the same, but this one has a special unique feature to it, so might as well take that, you know.
I feel like a quarterstaff would hit harder. I don't know if that even makes sense. Like, because it's thicker. I'm gonna share a picture of my bow staff because I haven't got to use it in a while, and I love it. It's about 5 foot long, so it's a little shorter than me, but it's, like I said, it's really light. It's well balanced, obviously, like as it should be, because it's primarily meant to be held from the center, so I can just hold it off like a finger, basically.
And it is something that you would use with 2 hands.
Oh yeah, both hands at the center. You can like you strike left, and then you can turn and strike right, like that kind of stuff.
So then I would make something akin to like a bow staff be, say, a D6 in damage. If you said, you know, a quarterstaff hits a little harder, I would say a bow staff does a D6 of damage and has that special tag where it's like, you know, you can, you know, use a reaction or something, or something, or this, you know, using this weapon gives you a +1 to your AC. Whereas a quarterstaff is a versatile weapon, so you can use it 1 or 2-handed. It would do a little bit more damage, but it doesn't have that special feature. You know, so that way they're both mechanically different. You know, and then you have options.
Sorry, how would you use a quarterstaff with one hand?
You fucking reach and smack somebody with it.
I'm just trying to like.
Yeah, Gandalf.
What the okay, I see what you mean.
Poke or like a poke. You
poke.
could easily check someone one-handed, like somebody like approaching you. You could easily like do like a check them in the chest real quick with it.
Not that in theory you couldn't with a fucking bow staff, but again, that just comes down to how any sword can be piercing or slashing in theory.
I think mainly fundamentally. Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, sorry. For bow staff, I pictured like basically Darth Maul, and then for quarterstaff, it's basically the same as, in my eyes, like a spear, I guess, except without the point. So when you're holding the spear, you're holding it towards like the bottom half, and then you're kind of like jabbing at it, I guess. So when you said quarterstaff with one hand, I was like, how do you do that with one hand? But yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Devin.
I was gonna say, like, I think mainly it boils down to just like the teachings of said weapon. I mean, they both got. My understanding is they both come from like historically the same roots, where like the bow staff back in you know, historical Asia was used. It would be the same thing as like Chinese as like the gun staff, or I don't know how you would say it specifically, like gun staff, whatever you'd say it. Where basically it was kind of like it was a tool. It was a, you know, it would use carry water buckets. It was a tool. It was cheap. But when it came to like defending oneself or the home, it effectively boiled down to it was an effective tool. Same thing in like Middle Eastern history, like medieval times, same deal. Medieval time.
Kind of like how most swords that are different from each other just came from different cultures, because we all got to the same conclusion differently. Yeah. So everyone was like, long stick hit somebody, and they all just did it different.
It was just kind of the fundamental difference of that, in the sense that it's just the way in the techniques taught with it were slightly different. That's why I would almost like to see like different flavors of like. I think that would really implement and make the fighter cooler too. Give the fighter they give them like fighting styles, but give them like take those fighting styles to the next level. That's what I would really like to see in like the next like D&D like iteration. Give the fighter like different fighting styles that actually changes fundamentally how they operate. So you have two fighters fighting each other with very different fighting styles, and they're very, very different on how each fighter operates. Would that might require going back to like the old wonderful 2E where you have like a fighter class book? Maybe.
Oh yeah. They have in second edition they have a whole combat book Just a
The
whole
whole-
book just devoted to combat.
Devoted to combat. I mean, and the thing is this, like, and if you really want to dive deep into the DM's guide and the player's handbook, their combat is actually pretty in depth in 5e, or you can get it pretty gritty.
Yeah.
It's just you really got to dive into it and really want to do it, but it's like nobody wants to.
I just want to say before I lose my train of thought, going back to the Apple's comment about how we all, like, no matter where we were in the world, we all kind of came to the same conclusion, like, long stick, weapon, long sharp instrument, stab. That's why I love the Maul, because it's heavy rock on end of stick, smash.
I mean, also historically speaking, if you
I
want to be
love
honest with you, to a trained practitioner with a sword and a trained practitioner with the staff should win almost every single time. Just purely in the advantage of reach. Yeah. Like purely in the advantage of reach. Like it's silly. How hard it is for a sword. In fact, it's funny, like people always like look at the katana going back to like even katana or like
now I have a question.
A little bit different because the armor was different. They were more like medieval knights were in full armor, so they could take hits from swords without like, and usually had to like get, slip it in between the armor. But going back to like samurais just for a minute there, because I've been watching a lot of like historical. I spend time watching historical videos because I'm stupid. But anyway, point being is, the katana is a sidearm. Like it's really funny, but a lot of people like, oh, the samurai. Like no, the katana is a sidearm. Their preferred way of killing you was with bows, and then their preferred melee way of killing you was with a spear or naginata. It was not the katana. That was like, oh shit. You caught me unarmed, or you caught me outside of the battlefield, and I carry my katana with me as my sidearm to keep me around. But the katana is akin to the soldier's pistol in this day and age.
Now, what was your question, Webby?
Yeah, I have a question. So, I mean, I agree, and it makes sense that, like, a person with just like say a long sword or whatever versus somebody with like a bow staff, if they're both equally trained in their weapons, a bow staff should win because, like you said, you have the reach, you can keep them at a distance and still attack with it. Now, and I know there's exceptions to every rule, but I'm also trying to make sure that I understand how certain weapons work versus other weapons. What about hook swords? Would those not be extremely effective against things like staves?
Well, hook swords are really interesting in the sense of they are designed to. A hook sword is designed for primarily tripping and disarming. I'm not saying they wouldn't be, but if you knew how to use a hook sword and you could kind of really like hook into, I would say this is what I would say. Against a metal staff, it will be significantly less useful because you could just slide the metal on metal. Against a wooden staff,
right, but you're eliminating the sense of reach at that point, though, too, because a good hook sword practitioner, they can actually hook their swords together, and that's where the blades on the handles come in.
Right. No, absolutely.
They can swing it that way.
Absolutely.
Hook swords are gnarly. Absolutely. I really wish I could buy that.
Hook swords are great. They're gnarly as hell. And another way to like interpret that would be kind of akin to like the 3-section staff, or akin to the flail, because the advantage of the flail was it was used to it would bend around shield and hit you. So like you swing it, they'd go up to block it, the shield would catch the chain, but the heavy spike ball would still swing around and get you. Now, were they kind of impractical when not actually like utilized perfectly? Yeah, they were. That's why they weren't like as nearly as popular as people think they were. But yeah, 100%. Like a good hook sword practitioner would at least eliminate that reach to a degree, or at least like lessen the severity of that reach. And also too, I mean, yeah, as a good quarterstaff wielder is just as proficient in close with their staff as they are at range with their staff. I would say, like, obviously, if you're like in fisticuffs range, you're probably at a disadvantage with the staff. But other than that, but also too, if you're a fisticuffs range, you're at a disadvantage with the sword too. So,
not wrong.
It's very funny because, like, right before this, I was watching the scene in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon between the two female fighters, and then Michelle Yeoh just goes picks weapon after weapon after weapon, and then like one of them was the hook sword.
Oh my goodness. I don't. So like something that I got into recently is I made a couple like homebrew subclasses. While I was doing that, I was looking at the monk subclasses, and I just try not to think about how angry I get the fact that they basically were like, ah, yes, this is the classic monk, and they just like took all forms of martial arts and were like in one. They were like, this is, and I'm like, I just, as someone who studied a specific form of martial arts, and my school taught 3 different kinds, and I saw multiple kinds throughout my different, travels and sparring experiences, I'm just like angry. Like I started playing around with trying to make like a vaguely jujitsu based, subclass, or like judo inspiration too, where it is like like there's types of martial arts that are just strictly around like grappling and being up close and personal with your opponent, versus other types of martial arts that are about keeping them at a distance. And it's just like I feel like
Right.
fighting styles as a whole just aren't expanded upon.
Oh man, Apple mentioning jujitsu. I remember when Webby did the zombie game, and I was like, my character does jujitsu. I'm like, why am I grappling with a zombie that can bite me? That was such a stupid mistake.
You chose the wrong martial arts for Apocalypse.
You know what martial art I choose for a zombie? For a zombie game? Gun fu. Gun fu.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I chose it because this was around the time where I was doing jujitsu, so I'm like, oh, cool, it's so cool. And so that's why I was like,
I'm
my character do
gonna roll with
jujitsu.
the zombie real quick. Let me roll
No,
on
but then
the
like
back of this zombie real quick.
I chose it, and I chose it. Then like we started playing. I'm like, wait a minute.
I just imagine you like go for it. You like crit one fail. You're like, I got him in a heel hook. I got him in a heel hook. You're like, break his leg off.
To be fair, I was the one that got bit too.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, Anthony, I mean, like I have not taken martial arts in my life, but I have been in fights, and I mean, a guy like me, my best choice: get in close, fast, and just get in your face. If I can get you down on the ground, even better. So I mean, what would my option in a zombie apocalypse would be like in a game? I'd be like, yeah, I'm gonna toss him in a headlock. It's like, okay, he's still gonna bite you though. It's like, shit, I didn't think this through.
Yeah, I don't know why I just didn't do boxing. Boxing is good too. I like boxing, but then again, you're still throwing a limb into the mouth.
Not exactly. Boxing, like it would kind of suck because you'd have to lose like mobility in like one of your hands, because you literally could do like brass knuckles. An actual boxing level would be hard to would be hard to bite through, and just literally start throwing jabs.
Wait, hold on. Actually, Devin, you might be the only one who watched it. Did you watch High School of the Dead?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so let me just let you go. There was it's a zombie movie anime. There was one high school student who's like, "Don't worry, guys, I got this. I'm the head of the kung fu class," and he does exactly that. He tries to like punch and fight a zombie, and the zombie just bites and kills him.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what would happen. It's like, I mean, a good chunk of martial arts responds to pain reception, like pain reception. Where it's like, I'm going to, hit you, and you're going to feel this, and it's going to hurt, and it will cause a reaction.
Right, or knocking your brain where like you're unconscious, but like none of that matters with the zombie.
That would work against a zombie to a degree, but like you have to do it to the point where like it would damage the brain. That's a whole other conversation. How much damage to the brain of a zombie do you actually have to do? Like, will inducing a concussion cause enough damage to a zombie brain to like stop the zombie from existing?
I have a question. Could you knock a zombie unconscious?
Probably not.
Okay, I'm just
in my.
If there's ever a zombie apocalypse, I will go live on SU.
Yeah, me too.
Just to see if it's possible. I'm like, oh shit, yo,
just start choking him out and say like, all right, any minute now.
Yep.
Well,
I actually have a question about a weapon regarding D&D, because so for DMs anyways, have you guys ever made a special like weapon or armor or item to give to like the players, and you're like excited for them to have it, and then just no one wants that item?
I know Webby has.
Oh man, I was so close.
I know Webby has given special objects to people, and they just like act like it's the worst thing ever.
I kind of feel bad because
that was a comment.
Because in the game that John's running for us, Rock of Cabrin, we found a weapon, and then they're like, "Oh, I don't want it. It's cool." I was like, "Oh no, I don't want it." No one wants the weapon. I was like, "Yeah."
I did a thing where I designed a weapon that was dope as hell. And then once I finished designing it, I was going to give it to a player, and then I was like, "No, this is too cool. I want to keep this for myself." And I never gave it to the player.
Yeah, I would just feel so bad for the DM if like they customized this weapon or had like a cool backstory and then just no one wants it, so they just either sell it or just put it away somewhere.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that weapon I think was specifically designed for Pre, but Tamara did not want the responsibilities, like the social responsibilities that went along with that weapon. So she was like, "Nah."
Yeah, and then like it just kept passing it around to other people, and no one wanted it. I'm just like, my character just vehemently just doesn't like swords, so he's like, "No, I don't want it."
I just imagine that's Webby. I know your like villain's next like origin story, like your next villain origin story is a god creates an artifact, but it's like he feels it's a really like powerful artifact, but it's kind of like middling. And everyone that gets it just keeps passing on it, and they don't give a shit about it. Like the first like 2 levels of it is really shitty, but like the last levels like makes it worth it. But nobody wants to keep it long enough to get there, and he keeps passing it along. He gets more infuriated as time goes on, and eventually he just goes pure villain.
Now I do have
the world like passing on his weapon.
In this same sense of conversation, I do have a question for Rob. Because I feel like this, I mean, maybe not necessarily a specifically tailored item, but in the Misthaven game, you had given us, and I don't know, my question is, was it a roll for loot, or did you choose the loot that we acquired on one of those jobs where we ended up getting that Afridi chainmail? Was that something you chose, or was that something that was rolled?
No, that was something I chose because I believe that was the house that had the Ifrit in it.
Oh, okay. Because I know we had gotten an Ifriti chainmail, which is a legendary item. Okay, but I feel like at the time nobody in our party could use it, like except for Hephaestus, but he wore plate, so he didn't want the chainmail. Now, what a Afridi chainmail does is it gives you, your AC bonus of regular chainmail and everything, but you become immune to fire damage. Just outright immune. You can literally walk on lava. Just nothing. It just doesn't phase you. But nobody in the party wanted it, so Mernon took it, and we brought it down to fucking like the local magic shop dealer, and I was like, "Yo, how much would you give me for this?" And he gave me an offer of like, straight up gold value. And I was like, okay, would you give me a little bit more if we did it store credit? And we decided that this was our go-to shop. Like anytime we need magic items, we come directly to you. And he gave me a better deal. So we've had this running tab with this one magic shop owner that we've still we're getting close now, but we still haven't depleted the value of just that one chain shirt, essentially. I hated selling that too, man, because that is such a good piece of armor. Being immune, just straight up immune to fire damage is...
Are you saying being immune, straight up immune to the most common damage type in the entirety of the game?
Right.
Is good.
Yeah. And lava.
That's good.
Lava.
No,
dude, you know what I would do if I had that? I would
you have to find a piece of armor that makes you immune to falling damage, and then we can just jump off Misthaven and see what happens.
You know what you do? You find something that makes you technically immune to bludgeoning damage. Then
yes, so we need armor that makes us immune to bludgeoning damage.
I just want feather falling 4 boots. It'll be fine.
Feather falling.
But the problem is like, what if
like Minecraft?
Innately give me the ability. Like as a monk, like I can reduce my falling damage. Like, oh, that's great, but that's not that great. It won't save my life.
Oh, maybe this is exactly what you just sent me. I had an epiphany. Oh, no, you did not send. That is not my. Okay, I will read this in a moment. What you just sent me. Ryder needs to get Afridi chainmail. Follow my lead on this, okay?
Okay.
Follow my lead on this. Hear me out.
Hear me out. It makes you immune to fire damage.
Hear me out, bro.
then you could get winged boots, which I told you anytime you specifically get winged boots that are filled with lava, you would not affect you. Be like, I just slapped that shit right on. I'm still gonna fly. You'll be dripping lava everywhere.
It's gonna pour the lava on my face.
See, what you have to do
nothing.
is you have to get a free chainmail, and then this is what you do: you get fired out of it. This is how we're gonna do this. We're gonna get a free chainmail in Misthaven. We're gonna get an airship. Airship is gonna have like a ballista. Now, hear me out. The person with your free chainmail is going to tie a bunch of effectively what ends up being Molotov cocktails to themselves. They're then going to we're going to ballista them onto the enemy ship. And then when they land, they will burst into flames akin to, I don't know, fireballs. And yeah, but they'll be okay though. They'll be fine. Now we just have to and then our only mission is to get them off the ship before the ship crashes to the ground.
Yeah.
And if we fail, I mean, we just give it to Avalos. No harm, no foul.
So, so I found a list, and it's a website that I know me and Rob use quite often.
I'm just a second, but Devin, that's basically what happened, just minus the free chainmail to the last airship you fought.
I'm aware, but I feel like there would be more of a peace of mind if he had the free chainmail. But I'm saying it worked really well. Did it not work really well?
Yeah, I guess.
The
whole encounter I had planned, but sure.
Devin, you're trying to improve upon the idea of a suicide bomber, just where they just don't.
I mean,
die.
to be fair, okay, but let me
repeatable suicide bomber.
Let me argue this point, Anthony. If there was ever anything in the world that needed to be improved, is suicide bomber not it? It's inherently flawed.
I don't need a more effective suicide bomber.
I'm just saying, but if you take out the suicide bomber, he's just a human bomber.
He's just a bomber, yeah. I guess
he's just Nitro from X-Men. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, automatically, any improvement to the suicide bomber, I guess, logistics is an improvement. It could be you died 2 seconds later.
I'm saying if suicide bombers could just not die, I feel like the world would be a worse place, not a better place.
I mean, look, some people just want to watch the world burn. And in this particular fantasy world, I think our group is that group.
It seems like it's always whenever any D&D game happens, the players are always the worst people.
Look, I try.
No, listen, you are part of the distractions group. In that instance, yes, you are right. You guys were the worst.
We're not the only one. Okay, I've read other
Hold on. Hold on. Anthony, yeah. I currently still DM groups who are cleaning up y'all's messes.
Ooh, got him.
Not you specifically.
I know.
No, I mean, well, Astonis even. Astonis was always this is the dumbest thing. And then you guys would do it anyway because you just kind of went with the flow of the rest of the group.
No. I'm going to argue. No. I'm going to argue. Every character I played has tried to do the right thing. Every character.
I'm trying not to point specific fingers about the distractions group.
I'm just saying, every character I have played and every character I have made has tried to fulfill the ultimate purpose. And then even when he died and I made a different character who I still adore to this day, and that's why I am happy he's still alive out there in the world. The point is, even him, even while trying to save the world, he took time to liberate a town. Multiple towns, actually. He ate one person, but whatever. That happens occasionally.
I mean, to be fair, you were a giant toad.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. That's what giant toads do. If Naruto taught me anything, giant toads eat people and wield swords. Yeah. So I'm just saying, I've always tried to do the right thing in those groups.
And I get it. And so didn't Trip. You know, Trip was always trying to do what was right.
I'm not saying that we were a good party. All I'm saying is that I've read a lot of, like, even when we were reading the like horror story on Reddit of other games, like it seemed like a lot of, in general, when people play D&D, the players are typically the worst people.
Yeah, I mean they're called murder hobos for a reason.
Yeah.
They go around murdering things and leave destruction in their wake. They don't care what happens because they don't feel the after effects. Webby's whole point is he tried to make us feel the after effects of it, and we still just said fuck it.
Well, we didn't say fuck it. We just were like,
well, some of us said fuck it. We're gonna go do this thing.
I feel like we just messed up. We had good intentions. We just messed up.
Okay.
See,
Okay.
I have this.
Some of us had better intentions than others. I will say that.
Go ahead,
Webby.
Apple.
No.
I was just gonna say I was attempting to not point fingers, but listen, y'all should not have put Talon in charge. That's all I'm saying.
No one else wanted to be in charge. That was the problem at the time.
We had a whole civil war moment, and then I left, and then I came back, and then when I came back, I died.
See, I have this like gut instinct to say that that in this specific instance, Spectre is not a murder hobo, but because what my brain thinks of when I think of murder hobos is people who just kill like anything, like they'll kill like a shop NPC, whatever. But I feel like I can't say that because my character just wiped out an entire inn full of a rival thieves guild.
Yep.
Out of revenge. Yeah. Oh yeah. You built that fucking boss. I remember now.
How did that fight go, by the way? How did that go?
We're alive.
You know what? It was close, and then at the very end of the fight,
that's not our fault. You forgot.
Oh hell yeah! I was not reminding you until the end.
Conveniently, Rob reminded me. He's like, "Oh yeah, what about that exhaustion ability thing?" I was like, "Fuck me! I knew
it's not our fault. You forgot. Not our fault."
Yeah, I genuinely thought it had something.
It was a good
We're still
fight.
Cursed.
So
okay.
What you're saying is it was a good fight without the exhaustion thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I genuinely thought it had something to do with.
We probably would have dead. We would have been dead.
With the.
So I did my job. Okay, I'm happy.
You did your job.
I'm happy. I did my job.
It was not an easy fight, especially the fucking. Oh my god.
I seriously was trying to figure it out. Like I thought it was going to be based on because you told us at the beginning of the fight to make sure we kept track of how many spell slots and items and stuff we used. So I thought that had something to do. Like I thought you were going to say, "Oh, so you gain this many levels of exhaustion depending on how many spells you used," and I was like, "Oh god." But then you never said anything about it, so I was like, "Oh, okay." But because you told us later why, because of Rose's reverse time thing or whatever. But I was like, "Oh, well, I thought that had to do with the exhaustion mechanic."
Oh my god. Yeah, no, that fight was brutal, especially since that bitch, like, because my character's a rogue too, so the fact that he was a half rogue and he knew all my fucking tricks, and I knew all his fucking tricks, I just sat there and I was angry the whole time that I couldn't sentinel his ass. I was just like, punch someone that's not me within 5 feet of me. And the bitch refused. He fucking refused to do that.
I barely fought him until the end.
So happy. That subclass made me so happy. Like when I found that subclass, I read it. I was like, "Yo, this is borderline unfair, and I love it."
No,
I mostly focused on his minions to try to get rid of that. Then I think I only fought him like the last turn,
which was smart. I mean, you guys didn't need that added, the added, aggravation of the four or five guys additionally in the back, shooting stuff at you.
I'm glad they despawned. The ones that were in the back room.
I forget what we were even talking about. I don't know.
It all started originally with fucking
you were blaming Anthony
cleaning up
for
messes.
destruction of the.
I don't know how that started.
I was not blaming Anthony.
Webby, all I gotta say is I was really looking forward to playing a funny Minotaur. I liked that character that I made.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, we had all of one session with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, the crazy old man.
You can blame
the crazy old man. Yeah, that was
all I know is Tez.
What if the rest of us just played anyways?
No, you didn't get to hear. I told Webby this, but because his name was Gilmore, and I made it so that when he gets angry, he becomes Killmore because he wants to kill people.
Stop it! I love it.
So Devin,
Killmore.
Yeah. He was a fancy Minotaur.
Oh.
And he was technically
Jax's son.
Yeah, he was technically Jax's son.
He was a very fancy Minotaur who wasn't really into like hurting people and
was he a
stuff.
fancy Minotaur, or was he a
Oh no,
snazzy
no,
Minotaur?
you should have seen the picture.
Top
He was
hat,
fancy.
bitch.
Yeah, he
He
had
had-
top hat.
I
Oh,
had
he
a
had a cool
vest.
hat.
I had a vest. I had a briefcase that turned into a hammer.
He was grammatically correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
and
love
then
this
like
guy.
his name was Gilmore, and he was very fancy, but he had bouts
You
where he
guys do
gets
know,
like
like,
blackout
I
angry.
I was the reason for the snazzy Minotaurs, right? Like I created the snazzy Minotaurs.
Yeah, I will give
Oh,
you
okay.
all the credit. I just like the idea of a very proper like brute. And so I made that character, and when I was thinking of Gilmore, I'm like, that sounds like Kilmore. I want to work that in somehow. So
Oh my god.
yeah.
Devin, I will have you know that snazzy Minotaur is still in the world, still
I know
lost,
You know, and I'm still happy about it. I'm still happy about it.
and he's still reading his map upside down.
And I'm telling you, I'm being honest with you. I'm telling you. Also, Anthony, by the way, you definitely need to figure out a way to like rework in Gilmore and Kilmore, and then you need to get like some girls.
Oh, I had the exact reason for
Kilmore
it.
girls. Kilmore girls.
No, no, I actually thought of
I
Gilmore.
mean,
Yeah,
Brenna
because
was in the party.
I thought of
Gilmore
Gilmore
Girls.
because of Gilmore Girls, and then like, I remember
Voiced by
thinking like
Rob
that
Lowe.
sounds like Gilmore. Yeah,
I know, but like we need like the Kilmore girls. That needs to be a
that
thing.
sounds like terrible. I
That
don't
sounds
like-
amazing.
I
It's like a
don't
girl
like-
band, but we're murder hobos.
Oh, okay, all right, that's fair. I thought it was like that we only kill girls. I'm
No,
like, I
No,
don't
no,
know how to
we
play this
are
character.
girls. We are girls,
Okay,
and
yeah,
we
that-
kill
that-
more.
I'm okay with that. Yeah. Yeah,
So listen.
I threw someone at someone. I think. Oh man,
Yep.
that was a good session.
So, moral of the story for all the listeners out there, maybe Rob has it off the top of his head, but go to Junk's Twitter, which I know is probably Linstead something.
Linstead DM.
Linstead DM. Yeah.
Linstead DM, and just tweet him #blame John.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do it.
That's
Hashtag
all.
blame Brenna. That way he'll more understand what it's about.
Yeah.
Is it the dead hookers in the room again? I just can't. I can't. I always bring it up to John almost like every session because it's still funny to me.
Oh man. And to this
What
day,
is
he's like, I did not do that. It's
I
like,
was like, he gets so angry when I bring it up, and I'm just
what
like,
did you-
yeah, I don't know. I just like bringing it up.
PC you can play? Like what's like largest like actual creature category size PC you can
Mi-
play?
medium.
Oh, my that's another
You
character I
You
like.
can't-
I really
there's
like
no way you can
my.
get like a large or a bigger
No.
creature.
Wizards of the Coast usually they tend to steer away from allowing players to play large
Okay,
creatures because of the
okay, like,
damage difference.
I know, but like spell wise, what's the biggest you can get
Oh.
spell wise?
I think enlarge makes you one size category bigger, so you'd be large.
Damn, I need to figure out a way to be large and then get one more size category bigger. Just because I want to make a
You could
like, I'll play
polymorph.
it- you could polymorph, but it wouldn't
True.
be the same.
It wouldn't be
Oh,
the same.
You could polymorph. Okay, polymorph yourself into a giant and then cast enlarging yourself. Only reason why is
Yeah.
I want to make a character who literally that's their whole shtick, and they just use a sling, but like their sling is them just hucking boulders at people.
One of the fighter types, I think, allows you to grow bigger.
Yeah, it's I think it's
and
actually the
then
new
you-
it's the new barbarian one, isn't it?
Yeah, it might be
No.
barbarian.
Path-
Whatever
Path-
the rune,
Path
the
of
one
the
with the
Giant?
runes, because
No,
there's
no,
a rune.
it might let you throw bigger, but Path the Giant lets you add your you're smaller, so you become large. Anything you're wearing,
Yeah,
become
so
large.
you can
Only
become
when
large
you
with
raise-
that,
only
and
when
then
you
cast
become
enlarge on
large,
yourself, which
and
would
you
make
get
you
the
bigger.
crush and
even.
hurl, and you get
Yeah.
the crush and hurl ability where you can add your rage damage when you throw something when you throw
Yeah.
your range attack with strength base.
Yeah.
So that's
Oh
cool.
man, Webby, I miss my elephant creature
Your Loxodon.
with the was it a trombone or track? I can't remember what instrument I had, but yeah,
Oh man, yeah,
First
that was
off-
one of the modules we were playing for that Austin.
yeah.
one.
And then I got petrified. Very very disappointing.
I like how we went from D&D weapons to just talking D&D now. I mean,
it's-
that is SU, I guess.
I mean,
We're
I
all
actually
just
do gotta
D&D
get off
nerds.
here. I don't know how long we've been going, but I actually do got to get off.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, when did the recording start? I don't have my OBS open because I joined late. Recording started.
It was
Man,
around the
Devin?
time like Anthony said something. It was like 6:00. It's been about an hour.
Before.
So sorry.
Just 7 hours.
7 o'clock. I live in a different time zone. Okay.
All right, Devin. Well, if you need to get going, you can skedaddle.
All right.
Do you have life advice before you go?
Life advice. Do I have life advice? Honestly, no. But I can.
I got you covered. I got you covered.
You got me. All right.
Yeah.
Well, real quick. Choose your friends wisely. Develop positive habits. And I love all of you guys. There you go. All right.
All right. Oh shit! That was a fucking huge flash of lightning. Damn.
Nice. It's Storm Terror.
There, Devin.
Sort of Zario.
Yep,
Best
there's
weapon
the
to
thunder.
die.
Yep, there's the thunder. That was quite the delay, so it's still quite a ways away. Hi, Donnie.
Hi.
We're just chatting D&D. We started off talking about different weapons and.
I
what
just told
they
y'all
were
the
flavor
best
is.
weapon, but
What'd you
think
say?
heard me. You're not gonna like it if I even tell your party members it exists.
Tell me.
Can you message me then?
No.
It's the one. Rob knows
I'm
what it is too.
curious.
It's the one that my druid got that you would never let me play that character again if I still had it. Not druid, dwarf. The dwarf in that one shot.
Oh yeah, I was actually looking at that today about potentially handing that out or letting it have a drop.
I'd say that's a high level thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, but yeah.
That was my one contribution I wanted to make was that needs to be on anybody's best weapons list.
Well, I mean, I did say that earlier. I did find a list that it's an expanded weapons list essentially, so it does have more unique, specialized weapons on it that I'm going to end up sending to Rob, and we can kind of try to maybe utilize it into the games because, like, they do have things like a katana, which does more damage than a longsword, and it's unique in the aspect that it is a two-handed finesse weapon, which makes sense. But you do not generally have two-handed finesse weapons. So, but they even have brass knuckles on this list.
It was wanting those a while back, wasn't it?
I was.
Yeah, it was you.
I mean,
why not?
It only does 1d4 bludgeoning damage, but whatever. I like the idea of being able to have, like, you know, because some players they have like they gravitate towards a special, like a unique type of weapon, like, you know, like I know Rainia in one of our games, she really wants to start using scimitars, you know, so I get it. Some of these weapons, I have no idea. And the cool part is, too, they have a small little section for shields.
Oh.
And so, like, they have, like, your normal shield, all it does is +2 to your AC. That's it. And then your tower shield, which is a heavy, special, versatile, but it also just gives you +2 to your AC. But then you have things like a spiked shield, which is a +1 to your AC, but it can also do damage. It does 1d6 piercing damage. Or a buckler, which is only +1 to your AC, but it does 1d4 bludgeoning damage because you can smack people with the buckler. Things like that.
Kind of cool. Giving extra uses for things like that.
Yeah. I am curious what the special thing is under the tower shield. Special using the tower shield blocks more than ordinary attacks. You receive a +2 bonus to dexterity saving throws when you wield it. If you are wielding this shield, you cannot cast spells that require somatic or material components unless you have the Warcaster feat.
That's normal though, right?
Versatile. And you never see shields with that have the versatile feat or tag to it. If you hold this shield in one hand, you can wield a weapon in your other hand, but that weapon must have the light property. If you hold it in two hands, the shield's AC bonus increases to +3. You can gain the benefit of holding the shield with two hands whenever both of your hands are free. For instance, you could throw a hand axe on your turn and still receive this benefit, or you could repeatedly draw and stow a war pick to receive the benefit every other turn. So I do think this list is kind of neat, and I think honestly Wizards of the Coast kind of dropped the ball not putting out something of their own of like this. And like I said at the beginning, it's not just weapons. I think there should be grappling maneuvers that you could do that they should add. Like Devin was saying, different fighting styles for the fighter that
I
really
said it
make
too
stand
for
out.
martial arts.
Yeah, martial arts, exactly. I think there's a lot of things that they could add that I don't think would overly complicate the game. It's just added stuff that, I mean, even as the DM, you could just opt to not use it. You could just be like, no, we're just going to use the base stuff, But in this day and age, too, I mean, there's plenty of stuff out there. You can find a lot of things that are homebrewed, and as DMs, you can insert it into your own games and things like that. So anything else people want to talk about?
Anyone else have any other weapons they're passionate about?
Gambit has a weapon I'm passionate about, but we won't talk about that on air.
I'm passionate about that same weapon.
Stop.
I should have stayed in bed.
Rob, just this one time, you don't have to shut up.
I have a question. Do they have throwing stars statted out?
Shurikens, right?
Yeah.
Yep, they do on this list anyway.
They just usually reskin the dart.
Not on this list, I don't think. What does a dart do?
1d4 piercing.
No, shurikens are different on this list.
Because when I type in Shuriken 5e, I don't see anything. I've seen stuff for like Pathfinder and like I've seen Homebrew, but I don't think I haven't seen it on like D&D Beyond or anything like that,
Your dart does 1d4 piercing. It's a finesse thrown with a range of 20-60. The Shuriken on this list does 1d6 piercing. It is a finesse light thrown with a range of 30-90. So it's slightly longer.
Not a official material though. So
no, I mean that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's what Apple was asking if it was, because she said D&D Beyond and stuff. But obviously not, because it's not official.
Yeah, I mean,
I knew someone had statted it out, but I didn't. Yeah, like I said, I didn't think it was in the game, like official material.
This particular book that I have, I'm going to end up sharing it with Rob, but it's from the GM binder, which we use a lot of stuff from.
Yeah, well, I do know like the monk class. I don't think any of the other classes say anything about anything, but it does say talking about shurikens in there, and it says you could just reskin darts, and then it says like nunchucks could be just a reskin club, and like it does mention that specifically in the monk. I
mean, it's like in theory you could reskin anything, but I just get kind of like not disgruntled, but just kind of like it feels lame just to like reskin darts to be like, yeah, it's a shuriken now. Like,
well, I mean that, and I mean,
but I mean, there's only so much ways to make weapons different before they just are redundant.
Yeah, but like, at the same
time,
the
glaive and the halberd are exactly the same. They just have different names. Like it's
no, that's fair.
How would you reskin a nunchuck?
That is true. The glaive and the halberd are exactly the same.
The glaive does the glaive does 1d10. A halberd does 1d8.
See, I would actually consider not a. I would sooner reskin a thrown dagger as a shuriken than I would assume a dart is similar to a shuriken.
Yeah. See, I would make the halberd do less, I feel. But I mean, like, it makes sense that like a shuriken would be different than a dart, because you're not going to throw a dart as far as you could a shuriken. I don't feel.
Too.
Maybe.
Yeah. No, I mean, they are. I feel like they are fundamentally thrown differently. 100%. Like.
I mean, as far as the damage, I mean, making a shuriken a D6 over a D4 for a dart. I mean, yeah, you could argue that a shuriken would do as much damage as a dart, but I do think that the range should be different.
Also, I feel like if you're talented enough, a shuriken could, like, say someone's holding their arm out and you manage to make the shuriken go like under their arm and cut through. I can imagine it cutting through the bottom of their arm and continuing, whereas like a dart kind of just sticks into things. At least if I'm picturing darts the way that they intend to be pictured, like a fucking like either a blown or like a thrown dart. Like it's not like a full blade. There's a point to it. It's not surrounded in blade. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I also have throwing stars. It's the second thing I'm passionate about. I have a batarang on my wall.
I mean, I would say it would probably do slashing damage as opposed to piercing, I suppose.
Yeah.
Is there a boomerang in D&D?
There sure is. Yeah, there is.
Is that blunt damage? I'm assuming
It's a simple weapon. It's bludgeoning damage.
right.
1d4
So
bludgeoning damage, and
does
if
it come back to you?
If you miss with the attack, it will return to your hand.
Oh, that's. Oh, wow, I would love to get it. What's the? Sorry, how much damage does it do?
1d4 bludgeoning.
Who has one right now?
I wouldn't.
Someone
mind
had one. Was it Cal? Was it Cal?
I mean, we probably. I don't know. We should talk about
Yeah.
that after.
Yeah. Yeah. Chill out. I just remember getting stuck in a tree.
But yeah, that the boomerang is on D&D Beyond. That's an official thing. It's the simple weapon.
For a weapon like that, seems kind of complicated to use. That surprises it's classified as a simple weapon.
But you know what they don't have is a boomerang with a scope and a laser sight.
What?
Huh?
I'm just saying it should increase the accuracy.
We should have sharks with lasers.
But no, it shouldn't because the weight and balance will be off.
Boomerang is not in the list of weapons on D&D.
Yes, it is.
No.
I'm staring at it right now, Rob.
I'm looking at it right now, too.
Do you have all the stuff unlocked?
I
Type
have
it.
whatever you have unlocked.
Go under equipment.
Yeah, I'm
And
under
then type in simple weapon.
Yeah, I'm looking at the simple. I'm not an idiot. I'm not a fucking moron.
Hey,
It
I don't know what
says
to tell you.
club. As the top one is club, and then
You know what?
dagger, great club.
Okay, to be fair, when I type in boomerang 5e, the first result is boomerang equipment D&D Beyond.
Oh, it's not here. I don't know.
Copy.
That's I believe you, Rob.
I just learned
do.
how to use this. Boom. I just learned how to use the snipping tool. Now I use it all the time.
Yeah, he learned like 2 days ago. Boomy, you do
I
come
don't
back.
even know what that page is. That's not the page I'm on.
Are you on D&D Beyond?
Hey,
Yes.
it's all right. It's okay. It's not that important.
I'm on.
It's not
I'm
that
on
big a deal.
D&D Beyond Chapter 5 equipment, and it's broken down into armor and shields, weapons, adventuring gear, equipment packs, tools, mounts and vehicles, and it's just a list of weapons. It doesn't have the weird like pictures that you have.
All right. I just want. I'm gonna ask you to do something, and I just want to see if it is different based off of how you get there. Kind of like that. You remember the 99 thing? How I couldn't bring up the menu, but then you did it a different way. I just want to see if this works. Go to the top and just hover over game rules.
Mm-hmm.
And then click on equipment on the right hand side. And then type in simple weapons.
Yeah, I don't know. This is already different, but I don't understand why it's not just in their list of equipment if it's an actual thing that exists.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. Write your congressman about D&D Beyond.
How do I take a screenshot? Because I want to show you this.
I mean, I can just walk
You
in
probably
there.
also have snipping tool.
Yeah, you can just type in your
it's
search
a
bar.
built-in Microsoft thing.
What?
In your search bar in the lower left, your actual computer search bar.
Yeah.
Type in snipping tool.
Okay.
And then it should pop up with something if you click on that.
Yeah.
And then click new. And it'll make your entire page look foggy. And you can highlight the part that you want to snip. And then you right click and copy and you can paste it in the chat. I'm not doubting you. I'm just saying it was on my list. And it's because of the way you get there. You're going to a chapter versus going to just the equipment list. I don't know why it's like that. I agree it shouldn't be like that. But I don't know.
There's an improvised weapon in the new season of The Boys that I feel like Rob might enjoy. You guys should totally watch that.
I've only seen clips of the new season, but I think I know what you're talking about.
You probably do. I'm not. I'm kind of transparent like that. I'm like a one-trick pony with my jokes.
Did you figure it out, Rob?
Yeah.
How's your pasta, Donnie?
Gone. It was delicious.
Gone?
though.
Hell yeah. I'm going to have leftover ramen or leftover food the second we're done with it.
But I mean, this is the page I usually use because it's easier than having to search through the entire list. It's just like, there's all your simple weapons, but it doesn't have things like the boomerang listed.
It could have
That's
been added like after the original book was released, maybe, you know? So like maybe they just never updated that page.
I mean, that's why I use the page that I do, because if I know that I'm looking under and I just want to see simple weapons, I just type in simple weapons and it brings up the entire list. Like, there's one on here that's not on your list too. The Yakwla, YKLWA.
Yeah, but it doesn't exist.
I mean, it does.
What is it?
A Yakwla is a simple melee weapon that is the traditional weapon of Chultan warriors. A Yakwla consists of a 3-foot wooden shaft with a steel or stone blade up to 18 inches long. It costs
So it's
1 gold piece and it deals 1d8 piercing damage on a hit. Although it has the thrown weapon property, the Yakwla is not well balanced for throwing. Range is only 10 to 30 feet.
Wait, did you say it's 3 feet?
3-foot wooden shaft with a steel or stone blade up to 18 inches long.
Yeah, that would be a weird thing to throw.
You know
Unless
what,
you're
man?
throwing like a javelin or something.
You know what else? Never mind.
I mean, another one that's not on your simple melee weapon list is the sling. That's a simple ranged weapon.
Yeah, it's under simple range weapon.
Oh,
I
I see.
didn't highlight simple range weapons, just the regular simple weapons.
Oh, okay. I see. They separate. See, I just have it classified under simple weapons, so I can go through. But not sure, Rob. It's the 99 menu thing all over again.
Oh well, hold up. Because wouldn't the boomerang be a ranged weapon, not a melee weapon?
No, it's not under range weapon either. The only simple range weapons it has listed is light crossbow, dart, short bow, and sling.
Ah.
Is a hand crossbow a martial then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay, I didn't know that.
So yeah. How long have we been recording for? Anybody got time?
About an hour and 20 minutes.
All right, so this is probably where we should probably wrap it up. Does anybody want to talk or chat about anything else before we wrap it up? Not hearing anything. I'm gonna guess that's a no. So we will do our outro. Apple, where can people find you?
Twitter, Appleschloss21.
Anthony, where can people find you?
I'm not really using Twitter, so not. I guess Rock of Caribbean, the D&D game I play with John and Rob.
How often do you play that?
I have no idea.
Wednesdays.
Oh, I know it's Wednesdays, but I don't know how often. Once a month?
It's probably about once a month.
I need more D&D.
I mean, we can
so
fix
many
that.
games.
We can fix that, Anthony. I'm just saying.
You have games?
So many.
Yeah.
I thought they were all full. That's why I never asked.
Man, I will reach out. You know what? I'll make a game specifically for you. You know what? You remember the Minotaur game? From Brenna? I mean, yeah.
Wait, are we making Kill Girl?
The Gilmore Girls!
Yes, Gilmore Girls.
I don't have time
And
for
just
more
like
D&D
that,
right
you
now.
guys have lost me.
I'll just say, hey, you guys woke up one morning. And,
We're girls
oh my
that
God,
kill more. We're not
Brenna's
killing
guys are
more
You're not going
girls.
to ruin Gilmore Girls for me. I'm not letting you.
Oh no,
not
we're
letting
just a
you.
bunch of girls who kill a lot, so we're the Killmore girls.
You're not ruining Gilmore Girls for me. That Rory, she's a firecracker.
Yeah.
The remade version wasn't the greatest, but
I didn't watch that. That doesn't exist in my head.
Oh my
okay, good.
God.
Don't watch
None
it.
none of you can find Donnie on the internet unless Rob wants to.
I'm
give
not
out
on the
his
credits
Twitter.
of this episode, guys. I don't feel like I have to put one on there. But it is Jack's Forest Walker all one word.
It's the Bronner 21, but you're not
Rob,
you're
you're
not gonna ever look at it. So
no. I don't think I've been on there in 6-7 years.
Rob, where
Also,
can
Rob's
people
a
find
traitor. At traitor, giving away my name.
you can find me
Traitor.
Confessor_X on Twitter and twitch.tv/ConfessorX on Twitch.
And as always, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Jack's Forest Walker, all one word, on Twitch at DM Webby, and on eBay at I Miss Devin's Outro. But he already gave us life advice, so I don't have to. So with that, everybody, thank you for listening. We love you, and fuck Booster.
Fuck Science Corner.
Oh yeah,
Oh.
Science Corner.
Too
Rob,
late.
do you have a Science Corner?
I
I know you were
did.
trying to cut him out. We're trying to leave him in the dust.
Too
What do you
late. The outro's already playing.
No. Is it?
Hurry up,
It
go.
would- yeah,
Yeah,
you said
you got. Yeah,
Speed
you
round.
can. We
Speed
talk over the
Do it.
outro all the time.
You guys do talk over the outro. Go ahead, Rob.
Faster.
Do it. Go.
all right. Well, yeah, it's not going to be enough time.
Just do the.
You could have said it with that time you just said.
No, it takes an explanation. Fine, the world's on fire. Enjoy. We're all going to die. Bye.
Mood.
necessarily think that that's
Promise.
a very
That is
good
true.
Science Corner.
Well,
I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, you said to do it fast before, so that's all you get.
I mean, we can go just do the Science Corner.
All right.
I'm only human. I make goddamn mistakes.
Yeah, but the intro was already playing. Now I got to go and edit it. And we're
No,
not
you
supposed to
don't.
have to edit
No, you
this.
don't. Then you know what? Just stop the recording.
No, it's fine.
Don't.
Yeah, the human body is able to adapt to temperature shifts, such as, especially like those of us here in the Northeast that have extreme temperature changes from cold to hot. Like your body gets used to it, which is why a lot of people in like England and stuff are having trouble with the extreme heat because they don't usually have it there. So even though it's like for us, it's like, oh, that's not that bad. It actually is killing people over there. I think that said that over 2,000 people in just Portugal and Spain have died from the extreme heat. And the reason is because the temperature is shifting way more rapidly than people thought. Even accounting for climate change, they thought people would have time to adjust, but apparently we're not. So the temperature is changing too rapidly for the human body to adjust, which is causing a lot of problems. And it's going to continue to cause a lot of problems as it continues to get hotter and hotter.
it's insane, dude. The amount of especially poor people in Europe, not poor people in Europe, as in I feel bad for the people in Europe who don't have AC in some parts of Europe because they normally don't fucking need it. Because it's normally not that hot there.
And the heat waves are also lasting longer and longer. In the 60s, it used to be just about 20 days. If we got a heat wave, it would be 20 days worth. And it is now up to almost 80 days every year.
That tracks, honestly, because where I live in the Midwest, I mean, it normally gets to the hundreds in July and August, but it was getting in the hundreds in June, and it's just hasn't really gone away. It's been miserable. Good Science Corner.
It is also affecting not just Europe, but Canada as well, because the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest is also having as much problems with the heat. They're not used to it either.
I hate the heat, but I'm kind of used to it.
I mean, you live in Cali where it's hot all the time.
Pretty much. Well, yeah. Well, we used to be like when I was like 10. I specifically remember like waking up in the morning being like really misty and foggy and like really refreshing and crisp. But I don't get that these days.
Ugh. I'm just glad it's been raining here recently, despite the fact that we had, well, and then fucking on Monday here, we got 11.5 inches of rain. It flooded so many things. It was insanity. And then it was raining today and we got another flood warning for a couple hours. Dude, it's been bad. All right, well, I want to go heat up my food. I want to go have.
Yeah, you gonna do that? You said it's ramen.
I got leftover. It's katsudon, and I have some pork rolls. Yeah,
That sounds good. I
it's
don't know what
gonna be.
katsudon is. but
I
it
meant to
sounds
type something else. I typed katsu instead. Dang you! I'm
You're
hungry.
Katsudon is like a type of like egg fried pork cutlet, as well as it has like it's like they fry it. No, that was my dog. They fry it and then they also put like soy and other things on top of it, and then the rice is just really fucking good, y'all. I can't even.
good. That
I'm gonna wait for my brother to bring me a Chipotle.
Did we finish the recording?
No.
Really? We're still going? I thought.
Listen.
oh, gee whiz, this conversation could have got a lot worse.
This is how we are unprofessional. But yeah, I guess we should have ended it now. So thank you all for joining us. It was a little bit out of order, but that's fine.
Yeah.
So thank you, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, fuck who's your goal. We said that earlier. If not, fuck who's your goal.
We said it at least once.
Okay.
I just love the amount of people that trickled in and out during all this. It's beautiful.
I mean, honestly, this should be how SUs are. People just come and go as they need
I'm
to.
simply unprofessional.